One question for each game. Let's go to Tampa Bay at Kansas City. Would you sit all Buccaneers other than Cade Otton?
Yeah, I mean, look, it's hard to get away from Rachaad White and or Bucky Irving in PPR based on what we saw last week. And for what it's worth, let's give Baker Mayfield some credit. Loses receivers and still comes out and has another 28-point fantasy day. Like, it's just, he's finding a way to get it done. But I think just based on the defense and the matchup, it's tough to say they're starters.
All right, next game. Let's go to Denver at Baltimore. Courtland Sutton, trick or treat?
Treat.
What did you just put up there?
Adam tapes cotton balls to face. Costume is ready.
These glasses are like very old glasses too. You can't tell. There's somewhere that I'm missing.
I hope a treat. I've got him ranked like right on the border of trick or treat, but I'm probably starting him.
Sutton or Zay Flowers?
Sutton for me.
Ooh, Sutton for Jamey, Zay for Heath.
I know Zay's had a better season. Have they had the same amount of good games? Like,
no,
15-point games?
I don't think so.
I'm sure there's a cutoff.
I think you'd be surprised at how close it is.
I'm going to say it's 4-2, Zay, but let's take a look. How many? 15 points? Let's see. 1, 2, 3
for Sutton.
Okay, then it's 4-3. And they probably had the same amount of games with 4 or fewer points. 2 for Flowers. No, how about 6 or fewer points? 3 of those for Flowers. That's crazy. Indianapolis at Minnesota. TJ Hawkinson, trick or treat?
Trick.
It's a trick, but like I've got some teams where I've been starting just miserable tight ends every week, and Hawkinson was on the on IR for me. I'm probably just going to go ahead and start him, even though I don't have him ranked as a top 18 guy this week.
I read a really good article on ESPN about the Vikings offense, and it made me a little more hopeful for TJ Hawkinson because it talked about how they don't really have a guy that works in that area of the field. They run their offense through 2 players, Aaron Jones and Justin Jefferson. And Hawkinson gives them a dimension that they just haven't had. And I didn't really think about that, but that's a really interesting point. It also brought up some cool stats on the Vikings. Like, could you imagine? I mean, just think about this. Justin Jefferson is having such a good season. He's quarterback proof, whatever. They also are averaging the fewest pass attempts per game in the NFL. And when we evaluated Justin Jefferson in the preseason, it's the Vikings. They're going to have so much volume, it's not going to matter. If I had told you in the preseason that Darnold would be the quarterback and they were going to have the fewest pass attempts in the NFL, just think about what we would have thought for Jefferson. So that's amazing.
What have the pass attempts been since London?
Still pretty low. I don't even think he's had a 30 pass attempt game. And the other thing that the article mentioned is that he holds the ball, I believe, longer than any quarterback, Sam Darnold, in the NFL. Once the ball is snapped, he's holding the ball. He's like waiting and waiting and waiting. So keep an eye on that left tackle situation for sure. But it's interesting stuff.
That's a big part of the reason they have. I don't think there's necessarily a huge run heavy desire in Minnesota, but he has a 10% sack rate, which is extremely high.
Mm-hmm.
And then also he's average, they throw the ball 15 yards downfield every time they throw it. So it's just chunk play after chunk play after chunk play. And all of a sudden we don't have the ball anymore.
He has a 31 pass.
Heath, I don't know how you track this or not, but you should be making offers for JJ McCarthy in Dynasty.
Yeah.
Right. Like if Darnold can do this, then McCarthy,
right,
theory could be really good.
Especially if somebody needs something, that is a contender.
All right. Sorry. Back to one question for each game. Chargers are at Cleveland. Who is the best wide receiver in this Chargers-Browns game? Only one wide receiver has had more than 7 targets against the Chargers. It was last week. It was Chris Olave. But who's the best wide receiver in this game?
Ladd McConkey.
Miami is at Buffalo. Who's the second best wide receiver in this game?
Jalen
Waddle.
Okay. Well, are you assuming Cooper's going to play or no?
I have Cooper ranked the lowest of all the main receivers in this game.
Behind Shakir and Coleman? Wow. All right. I mean, listen, the Dolphins have not had good history throwing the ball against the Bills in the Tua era, even Tyreek Hill. That's terrible. All right, Las Vegas.
He's also left 2 games against Buffalo in his career.
Has he? Because I thought he played full game. At least in the Tyreek Hill era, I thought he had played games.
Well, he left the first concussion that he suffered. That was, I think it's the first concussion he suffered was
Yeah, this week you mean? This year?
No, but 2022.
Was that the non-concussion?
Right. All right. Anyway, let's go to Las Vegas at Cincinnati. Jacoby Myers, trick or treat?
Treat.
All right. Bengals have allowed 15 or more PPR fantasy points to 6 wide receivers in their last 5 games. New England at Tennessee. Ramondre Stevenson or Calvin Ridley?
Ramondre, if Drake May clears the protocol. Ridley, if it's Jacoby Brissett.
So I'll go Ridley in full PPR. I think I'll go Ramondre. No, I'm going to go Ramondre across the board.
Yeah, Christian Gonzalez is the type of cornerback that I don't know. Look, he's kind of up and down. But I always say this about Ridley. He does not do well against cornerbacks, like good cornerbacks that shadow him. I'm almost positive that he's going to shadow Calvin Ridley. Also, Stevenson, like when they're close or winning, that's when he has good games. Dallas at Atlanta. Which quarterback do you prefer, and do you like them this week?
I do like them. I like Cousins more than Dak.
I like them both. I like Dak slightly more than Cousins.
Yeah, I mean, since Micah Parsons and DeMarcus Lawrence got hurt, and now you got Deron Bland still not back, and you got Trayvon Diggs missing practice, I think they've given up like 7 passing touchdowns in their last 3 games, and it's been on 30 or fewer pass attempts in each game. They've just been terrible. I was trying to do the math before the show, but the yards per attempt, they've been horrible, the Cowboys, against the pass. All right, Detroit at Green Bay. Is this a bonanza? Okay, here's a weird question. Is this a bonanza with only one wide receiver we can trust?
It's a great question. I think clearly you're starting Amon-Ra St. Brown, and then do you start? Look, you're starting Reed and Dobbs in 3 receiver leagues. There's no question about that. In 2 receiver leagues, do they crack the lineup? It probably comes down to who you have, but hopefully, I mean, it's a great matchup.
Yeah, it's so frustrating with Reed because he's getting 6 targets now, and he's. By the way, Jaden Reed doesn't have a rushing yard. He's got he keeps getting a 1 carry for no yards, getting almost nothing on the ground. The first 2 games, he had a lot of rushing yards. By the way, do you want to hear? I teased it. Why I think the Lions are going to win the Super Bowl? Yeah. Okay. Look at the quarterbacks they've played: Stafford, Mayfield, Kyler, Geno Smith, Dak, Darnold, Mason Rudolph. They haven't given up a multiple touchdown game yet. They're something like 12th against quarterbacks. Their pass defense has, even with Hutchinson out, their pass defense has improved so much. And they're obviously one of the best offenses in football.
They really need to be aggressive, and I'm sure they're trying to make a trade for a pass rusher.
All the talk has been about Zadarius Smith going from Cleveland.
And it's the game of the week, yeah.
We're waiting for you to say something.
We really need Jordan Love to play, but it's the game of the week. Hey, it's the Lions and the Packers. Oh!
So in the 2 games without Aiden Hutchinson, the blitz rate has actually been 45%. So that's how they're generating their pass rushes, by sending more players at the quarterback. And it's working out for them overall. I wouldn't say that there's like one guy that's just dominating from what they have. So a trade should be in the works for them. They should add somebody to make that pass rush better so that they don't have to blitz as much.
All right, listen, whatever. I was just trying to get game of the weekend. The Chicago's at Arizona. Is this a bad game for the
It gives you great analysis. You're like, whatever.
Yeah. Is this a bad game for the passing games, Chicago at Arizona?
I mean, is it the ones you like, oh my God, I can't wait to start Marvin Harrison Jr. and DJ Moore? Probably not. But it's hard to sit those guys.
Is it hard to sit DJ Moore?
Yeah, I don't think it's that hard to sit Moore at this point.
Okay. Tell me 3 receivers you're starting over DJ Moore that people have the ability to get. Yes, Josh Downs, Jacoby Myers, Cortland Sutton. Great. You can start them over DJ Moore.
Thank you for answering that question.
That was easy.
You starting Cedric Tillman or DJ Moore?
I have them back to back. Moore is 1 spot ahead of Tillman. I don't know if I'm going to keep it that way.
No, I did like a little mid-season look at DJ Moore. He is currently wide receiver 35 per game in non-PPR, number 32 per game in full PPR. I was optimistic about him because I felt like earlier in the year, Caleb Williams had missed him on so many big plays. But Williams was so bad last week, and he doesn't throw that much. He's got 2 games with more than 29 pass attempts. All right, we can talk about him a little bit more later. So let's go to our next game. In one question for each game. Control F. Los Angeles Rams at Seattle. Give me a quick rundown of how we're ranking the wide receivers with uncertainty about Metcalf and Puka.
Well, you're definitely going to put DK Metcalf in your rankings at the top. All right, I'm done with that. No, it's Puka first, Cooper Kupp second, and I don't want to start anybody from Seattle. I know the matchup's favorable and all that, but I'm tired of chasing Jackson Smith and Jigba's targets. I'm tired of thinking about Tyler Lockett. Demarcus Robinson was great last week. I don't want to chase that. I'm good with just the 2 Rams receivers if I can help it.
Okay. I mean, look, it wasn't a bad game for JSN. He had about 6 for 70-ish, something like that. It's okay. But, all right. Washington at the Giants. Why is Malik Neighbors in your top 8?
Why is he not?
Why is he not? Look at the last 2 games since they lost Andrew Thomas. Commanders have one of the best pass rushes in football. And in their last 5 games.
Last week.
What's that?
He had 13 targets last week.
And he scored what? 13-something fantasy points. 14.
Almost had a touchdown on top of it.
I mean,
like, he's still going to get tons of opportunities, and that's all you could ask for.
Fine, I'll start Malik Neighbors. Jeez.
there's only one reason not to start Malik Neighbors.
You have Josh Downs.
No, Daniel Jones at home.
Oh, yeah. Daniel Jones hasn't thrown a touchdown in 3 straight games. Jacksonville at Philadelphia. How do you approach the Jaguars running backs?
When you see them, you run the other way. That's how you approach them.
What'd you say, Jamey?
Bigsby's a flex. If ETN plays, it's tough to say any of them are any good.
Do you think they're going to be competitive in this game or trailing in the second half of this game?
Probably trailing.
They're still competitive if they're trailing.
Yeah, I'm nervous about Bigsby, and I don't even know how much I really like him as a flex. If ETN plays, then I think there's some appeal as a PPR flex, but not a top 24 running back. And if he's out, then I think Dearness Johnson comes back on the map as a check down guy for Trevor Lawrence. I'd be surprised if either guy found 11 PPR points. Any of them.
I mean, look, they said Doug Peterson said he was optimistic about ETN at the beginning of the week, and he's been limited in practice for 3 weeks in a row now. But all right, the Saints are at the Panthers. How do you approach the Panthers running backs? And then I have a second question for this one.
I'm starting Chuba Hubbard. He's a number 2 running back.
So even if Brooks plays, we're not expecting a big role.
Correct.
Okay. And the Saints are obviously a great matchup here. Second question, are you tempted to start Xavier Legette or Jalen Coker, as the Saints have allowed 111 more yards to 3 receivers in their last 4 games?
I would prefer not to start them. Certainly not Coker. I'm not there yet. Legette is more of a desperation 4th receiver if you start 3 receivers and a flex. If you are stuck a receiver, he could be your 3rd receiver. It's just, if it was Andy Dalton, I'd have a lot more confidence.
You know, I didn't think Bryce Young was terrible last week. I thought he made some improvements.
He did.
So maybe he's on the right track. Legette popped up on the injury report on Thursday, so that's something you have to keep an eye on. I agree with you, Jamey. I think that Legette is the one of the 2, and he's at best a desperation type of flex.
I want to tell you my new favorite thing in fantasy football. It is turning on the full Fab report, because I got Coker for $22 in our Dynasty League, and then I checked the Fab report, and Heath bid $21 for him.